What's up, guys? Welcome to New York. I haven't been back here in many years, so really excited to be back here in America to talk about our plans to expand here. So before I sort of get into the core of my conversation, which is about what we're building on for Solana and then on top of Solana, I want to start with two stories. This one is a tweet that I snatched from Mr. Arif, and then I think this is something that's quite applicable to everybody here in this room, right? I just want to I'll read a little bit of it, so and then I'll get into sort of the heart of the conversation here. It's like, so you just raised $7 million, all right? And then and you hired a KOL agency in Dubai, but your users, they're in Lagos, they're in Manila, they're in Sao Paulo, they're in Accra, they're in Jakarta, right? Still think you know the market, right? It should let you know the secret, right? Because you look at all the wallet distributions globally, right? Where are they? Right? So sort of the mentality that I want to tell people is that sort of like the money is in the West, the capital is here, but if you want to grow your product on a fee model, right, and you want capital density, but if you want any users, you're probably building on the wrong continent, right? So I think that's one of the concept that I kind of want to get to, and in terms of if your fund rate, because the market that funds your runway is probably not the same market that feeds your users. And I think that's one of the point that I kind of want to get across in terms of why what's important. And then the second chart that I kind of want to show is this is basically swap volumes based on wallet. And then the big orange chart for where the growth was for the last 2 months is actually in the Binance wallet. And the reason why I want to touch on that is sort of because I used to work there. So I'll give a little bit of introduction about myself. My name is Zhou. I'm currently the CEO for Coins. We currently run licensed exchanges in the Philippines and Thailand. We've also recently expanded into Brazil and are expanding to Europe. And they're now looking at basically bring our presence here in the US, but not necessarily as a exchange business, but actually more of as a technology service provider, providing global fiat services for the Solana ecosystem. And why I think fiat on and off ramps is actually one of the biggest pain points in terms of helping Solana developers to localize their apps is I want to basically to be able to have within sort of the Solana developer stack, what you see in sort of the Apple developer stack and what you see in the Android developer stack, which is basically payments. You can basically natively integrate, there's SDK in there that you can natively get payments from these developing regions. And I think that's something that's interesting. And the reason why I want to point out this slide is, I know when I was working at Binance before, one of the work that I did is basically launching fiat services in about 100 plus different currencies across the world. And I think, and in terms of how they were able to really ramp up where their service offering is actually, I think, in actually opening up fiat on and off ramp. Albeit sometimes, like a lot of gray area, but I think by having that fiat on and off ramp, especially from an on-ramp perspective, is critical in terms of actually not just getting users, but actually getting the users' money, I think, on-chain into the Solana ecosystem. So in terms of what we're looking at here, sort of Coins right now, the right-hand side is basically where we are in terms of our existing licensing coverage. So in countries where we have licensed fiat services, these are countries where we can actually swap, not just Bitcoin, but actually more so stablecoin in and out of local fiat currencies. Because I think if you're in the US, it's actually pretty easy to get stablecoins nowadays. I think it'll actually become easier. And you know exactly what your price is. It's $1 for $1. But if you're in the Philippines or in Thailand, even if you're in Europe today or in Nigeria, that stuff is not one-to-one. Because half of the battle is actually not even just getting licensed. Half of the battle is like, what's the price? Like, what is the fair price that I can buy US dollar stablecoins such that I actually get on chain, right? And this is where I think liquidity becomes important and then access becomes important. And what I mean by access is that in most of these countries, we know that crypto goes 24/7, but in most of these countries, you already have existing fiat infrastructure that goes 24/7 as well. And I tell you what, it's not credit cards. It's actually the local fiat rails. Like for example, in the Philippines, it's InstaPay and PesoNet. That's basically and then in Thailand, it's PromptPay. In Europe, it's SEPA. In Nigeria, it's NIBS. And in Brazil, it's PIX. So in most of these countries, fiat kind of exists 24/7 already. And then also near very low cost as well, right? So the way that we're thinking is that if we can basically connect Solana into that local fiat ecosystem So not only do we get on-chain money, we can actually get access to fiat money 24/7 at almost near zero cost. And I think that's something that we're thinking of that we would like to bring. And then just sort of like talk about some of the samples that we're thinking of. This is basically the Jupiter slide, right? So at the bottom, you basically say buy Sol with fiat, right? This is something that we want to put into the developer stack within the Solana ecosystem such that you can actually, any developer can instantly access fiat currency deposit and withdrawal within the countries that we're currently licensed to serve, right? And then I think that gives coverage in our planning about 2+ billion users, and maybe even more if there are more countries that open up to crypto. So what's interesting here is that this is not a credit card that you have to deposit, right? And what you're seeing is basically if you're in the Philippines and then you want to buy fiat, buy Sol or buy USDC, we embed this within sort of Jupiter if you want to pull that SDK, and then what you'll see is a QR code. And that QR code basically automatically, I can scan that with the payment app or my banking app in the Philippines, and then I instantly basically have money deposited within Jupiter, and I can make the purchase. And that's the on-ramp. And I think the on-ramp is the important part, but the harder part is actually on the off-ramp. So if I'm selling, I made some money, right? I want to bring the money off a platform. Hey, guess what? I can actually effectuate the off-ramp as well. Because the off-ramp, this is this demonstration here is with the Pix network in Brazil, which we're integrated in as well. So once you can sell USDC into Real, and then once you scan that, you can basically get the information such that you can actually get that money back into your Pix wallet or any basically payment app or banking app that you have in Brazil as well. So I think this is something that that we're bringing here. So so one of the stories that I tell people is that it's really important for the developers in this room to think about sort of like how can I localize my services in these regions. But to start off with is basically how can I get access to the money from the users into these regions? How can I get that money on, but then off as well? So I think this is something that we're really excited about. So we can actually bring a hosted experience so that the users actually stay within your app while we handle the compliance, the payment, and the delivery. So I'll stop here. Thank you guys very much.